The cardiologist. At home, on the go. My hands didn't shake anymore when I held a scalpel. 12 years of cardiac surgery will do that to you. What they don't tell you in medical school is that steadiness isn't just about your hands. It's about your entire life, your foundation. And mine was about to crumble in ways I never saw coming. I'm Dr. Marcus Chen. At least, that's what the nameplate on my office door said at San Francisco Memorial Hospital. What it didn't say was that I was also the son-in-law of Dr. Raymond Cole, chairman of the hospital's board of directors. What it definitely didn't mention was the medical device patent I'd been developing for 3 years that could revolutionize how we treat cardiac arrest patients. My wife Jennifer and I have been married for 10 years. We met during my residency when her father gave a guest lecture. She was in hospital administration then, working her way up. We had a daughter, Sophie, who just turned 7 last month. She wanted to be a doctor like Daddy. That thought used to fill me with pride. Used to. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. I remember because Sophie had drawn me a picture of a heart with a stethoscope that morning, and I tucked it into my white coat pocket before leaving for work. The irony wasn't lost on me later. Dr. Chen, Dr. Cole wants to see you in his office immediately, my assistant, Maria said, her voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. She wouldn't make eye contact. I should have known then. Raymond's office was on the top floor, overlooking the bay. Floor-to-ceiling windows, mahogany desk, awards and diplomas covering every wall. He'd built an empire in healthcare, and San Francisco Memorial was his crown jewel. I'd always respected him, admired him, even. "Marcus, sit down," he said when I entered. His voice was cold, clinical, the same tone he used when delivering bad news to families. Sitting across from him was Scott Reeves, the new chief of surgery who'd been hired 6 months ago. Scott gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure you're wondering why you're here," Raymond continued, sliding a folder across his desk. "We've received several complaints about your performance. Patient care issues, procedural concerns." I stared at him. "What? That's impossible. My patient outcomes are among the best in the department. That's not what the data shows." He tapped the folder. "We've been reviewing your cases over the past 18 months. The board has decided it's time to make a change." The words didn't register at first. They couldn't be real. "A change? Effective immediately. We're terminating your employment. We're also recommending the state medical board review your license." The room tilted. 12 years. I'd given this hospital 12 years. I'd saved hundreds of lives in these operating rooms. I'd mentored residents. I'd published research. I'd been nominated for department chair just last year. This is insane. "Raymond, you know my work. You know what I've accomplished here." "What I know," he said, leaning forward, "is that we can't afford any more liability. Scott will be taking over your cases. We'll provide you with 6 months severance, but you need to clear out your office today." Scott's smile widened slightly. Something about it made my stomach turn. "You can't do this. I want to see these complaints. I want names, dates, specifics. The investigation is confidential. Security will escort you out." "I'm sorry, Marcus, but this is final." I stood up so fast, my chair fell backward. "You're sorry? Raymond, what the hell is going on? I suggest you don't make this harder than it needs to be. Think about your family." That stopped me cold. Think about my family. What did he mean by that? I left his office in a daze. Security was already waiting outside. They followed me to my office, watched as I packed my personal belongings into a cardboard box. The picture Sophie drew that morning went on top. My diplomas. Photos. The prototype of my cardiac device that I'd been keeping in my desk. Wait. The prototype. I opened my desk drawer, where I always kept it. Empty. Looking for something? Scott appeared in my doorway, leaning against the frame with that same unsettling smile. "Where's my device?" "What device?" "There's nothing in this office that belongs to you anymore, Marcus. Hospital property stays with the hospital." He knew exactly what I was talking about. But before I could respond, security gestured toward the door. The walk to my car was the longest of my life, past colleagues who suddenly found their shoes very interesting, past the cafeteria where I'd eaten lunch with Jennifer just yesterday, past the ER where I'd spent countless nights saving lives. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could turn the key. My phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. "We need to talk when you get home." My hands were shaking now. The house was in Pacific Heights, a beautiful Victorian we'd bought 3 years ago. Jennifer's father had helped with the down payment. I should have seen that red flag then. When I walked in, Jennifer was in the living room, sitting on the couch with 2 suitcases next to her. My suitcases. "What's going on?" I asked, though some part of me already knew. She stood up, and I saw she'd been crying. But her eyes were hard, determined. "I'm filing for divorce, Marcus." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? Jennifer, what are you talking about?" My father told me what happened. The complaints, the problems with your work. I can't be married to someone who could lose their medical license. I have to think about Sophie. "That's not what happened. Your father is lying." I don't know why, but those complaints are fabricated. "Jennifer, you know me. You know my work." "Do I?" She picked up an envelope from the coffee table and handed it to me. "This is from my attorney. I'm seeking primary custody of Sophie. Given your current situation, I don't think you'll have trouble agreeing to limited visitation." "Limited visitation? She's my daughter. She's my daughter too. And I'm not going to let her suffer because of your failures." I couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Where am I supposed to go? She picked up a brochure from the table and held it out to me. I recognized the logo, San Francisco Men's Shelter. My father suggested this. They have resources for people in transition. The woman I'd been married to for 10 years just handed me a homeless shelter brochure. The mother of my child. The person who'd promised to stand by me in sickness and in health. "Jennifer, please. Talk to me. What is really happening here?" "What's happening is that I'm moving on. I deserve better than this. Sophie deserves better than this." "Better than what?" "I've given everything to this family. And look where that got you. Fired. Disgraced. My father said you're finished in medicine." Something in her voice made me look at her more carefully. The way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. The way she twisted her wedding ring. She was hiding something. "This isn't about my job, is it?" She turned away. "Just take your things and go, Marcus." "Who is he?" She spun back around. "What? There's someone else. That's what this is really about." "Who is it?" Her silence was answer enough. "My God. How long?" "That's not relevant." "How long, Jennifer?" 6 months, she whispered. "Since Scott started at the hospital." Scott, the new chief of surgery. The man sitting in Raymond's office this morning with that smile. The man who took my prototype. Everything clicked into place. "Your father knows." She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. I could see it in her face. He knows, and he helped set this up. The complaints, the termination, all of it. So you could be with Scott. Just go, Marcus. Please. I picked up my suitcases and walked out of my own home. Our home. The place where my daughter took her first steps. Where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesday nights that now felt like treasures. I sat in my car outside the house and called the one person I thought I could trust. My best friend from medical school, David Park, who practiced across the bay in Oakland. "Marcus, I heard. Man, I'm so sorry. Do you need a place to crash?" At least someone still had my back. I spent that first week in David's guest room, trying to make sense of what happened, trying to understand how my entire life had evaporated in a single day. David let me decompress, brought me coffee. Didn't ask too many questions. But on day 8, something shifted. I woke up angry. Not the hot, explosive kind of anger, the cold, calculating kind. The kind that doesn't make you punch walls, it makes you plan. I started with my personnel file. I had copies of everything at home, documentation I'd kept meticulously over the years. Patient outcomes, success rates, peer reviews, letters of recommendation, awards. Not a single negative mark in 12 years. Those complaints Raymond mentioned didn't exist. They couldn't. So I filed a formal request with the hospital's HR department for copies of any complaints filed against me. Legal right to see my file. They stonewalled me for 2 weeks. Finally, I got a response. Due to the ongoing investigation, we cannot release this information at this time. Investigation. That was interesting, because if there was a real investigation, the medical board would have contacted me by now. They hadn't. I started digging deeper. I've been careful over the years, maybe too careful, but I had access to things most people didn't know about. Hospital financial systems, for instance. As a senior physician, I'd had high-level access to certain databases for research purposes, access they hadn't revoked yet. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 3 years, approximately $8 million had been moved from the hospital's equipment fund into a series of discretionary accounts. The transfers were approved by Raymond Cole. The money then moved into what looked like shell accounts, buried in footnotes and technical language that most people would never notice. Raymond was embezzling from the hospital, but it went deeper. Those discretionary accounts, one of them had paid for a new luxury condo in Nob Hill 6 months ago. I looked up the property records. The condo was registered to Jennifer Cole Chen, my wife's maiden name. They'd used stolen hospital funds to buy Jennifer a love nest. I kept digging. Scott Reeves, the perfect chief of surgery, Harvard Medical School graduate, board certified in cardiac surgery. Impressive resume. Except something bothered me about his credentials. Call it instinct, call it desperation. But I reached out to some old contacts, people who could verify medical licensing databases, education records. Scott Reeves did graduate from Harvard Medical School, but he never completed his board certification in cardiac surgery. He'd failed the exam 3 times before giving up. The certifications listed on his hospital credentials were falsified. San Francisco Memorial had hired an uncertified surgeon as chief of surgery. Patients were going under the knife with someone who wasn't qualified to operate on them. And Raymond knew. He had to know. He'd approved the hire personally. Now I understood. Raymond needed Scott for 2 reasons. First, to keep Jennifer happy. Second, to provide cover for his embezzlement. If Scott owed his career to Raymond, he'd stay quiet about financial irregularities. And I was the threat. I'd been raising concerns about budget discrepancies for months. Nothing major, just questions about equipment purchases that seemed inflated. Raymond had dismissed them every time, called me paranoid, said I should focus on medicine, not accounting. I hadn't pushed it. I trusted him. That was my mistake. But the final piece of the puzzle was my device, my cardiac intervention device. 3 years of research and development, clinical trials, data collection. I'd done all of it through the hospital, but the intellectual property was mine. I had documentation, original sketches, research notes, patent applications I'd started filing. I went back through my emails, found the conversation from 4 months ago where Raymond had asked about the device, said he wanted to explore commercialization opportunities, asked me to send him all my documentation for review. Like an idiot, I'd sent it. 2 weeks after that, a medical device company called Cardiotech Solutions had filed a patent for a device suspiciously similar to mine. I looked up Cardiotech's board of directors. Scott Reeves, chief medical officer. Raymond Cole, board member. They'd stolen my patent, used my research, filed it under Scott's name. The device I'd developed to save lives was going to make them millions, and I'd get nothing. I sat in David's guest room with all of this information spread out in front of me. Bank records, email threads, licensing discrepancies, patent filings, evidence of embezzlement, fraud, medical malpractice, and intellectual property theft. They'd tried to destroy me. They'd taken my job, my wife, my daughter, my home, my reputation, and my life's work. They thought I'd just disappear, accept defeat, fade away. They had no idea who I really was. Before I married Jennifer, before I became Raymond Cole's son-in-law, I'd been Marcus Chen from Queens, the kid whose parents worked 16-hour days at their restaurant to pay for his education. The kid who put himself through college working 3 jobs. The kid who graduated top of his class at Cornell and got into Stanford Medical School on a full scholarship. I'd built myself from nothing once. I could do it again. But first, I had a promise to keep. To every patient who trusted San Francisco Memorial. To every family who thought their loved ones were in qualified hands. To my daughter, who needed to understand that you don't win by cheating. You win by being better. I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the California Medical Board. I submitted a formal complaint about Scott Reeves' falsified credentials, along with evidence. The second was to the FBI's white-collar crime unit in San Francisco. I sent them everything I had on Raymond's embezzlement. Bank records, transfer authorizations, property purchases. All of it anonymously, but thoroughly documented. The third was to a patent attorney I'd found through David's network. Not just any attorney. One who specialized in intellectual property theft cases against major corporations. One who worked on contingency and loved a good fight. Then, I waited. The FBI moved first. 2 weeks after my anonymous tip, Federal agents showed up at San Francisco Memorial with warrants. They seized Raymond's office, froze the hospital's financial accounts, started interviewing staff. The news broke on a Thursday. Hospital board chairman under investigation for embezzlement. The local stations picked it up first, then the national outlets. $8 million. Falsified records. Possible additional charges pending. Raymond's lawyer issued a statement denying everything. Called it a witch hunt. The medical board moved next. They suspended Scott Reeves' license pending investigation. When they discovered his board certification was fake, they revoked it permanently. Criminal charges followed. Practicing medicine without proper credentials. Fraud. Reckless endangerment. The hospital put him on immediate leave. Started reviewing every surgery he performed in the past 6 months. 3 of them showed complications that a board-certified surgeon would have caught. The family started filing lawsuits. My patent attorney filed suit against Cardiotech Solutions 2 days after the Scott Reeves story broke. Intellectual property, theft, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. We had everything. My original research notes with timestamps. Email evidence of Raymond requesting the documentation. The patent filing dates that showed Cardiotech submission came just days after I'd shared my work with Raymond. Cardiotech's lawyers tried to fight it, claimed the device was substantially different from my original design. But my attorney was ruthless. He got depositions, brought in expert witnesses, showed that 87% of the core technology was identical to my original specifications. The judge wasn't impressed with Cardiotech's arguments. He ruled in our favor, awarded me $15 million in damages plus royalties on every device sold. But here's what the news articles didn't report, what the press releases didn't mention. During the FBI investigation, agents discovered something else. Jennifer had been actively involved in helping Raymond hide the embezzled funds. She'd set up the shell accounts. She'd facilitated the property purchases. She wasn't just a bystander. She was complicit. The prosecution offered her a deal. Testify against Raymond, serve 2 years probation. Refuse, face up to 10 years in federal prison. She took the deal. The custody hearing happened 3 months after the criminal charges were filed. Jennifer's lawyer tried to argue that she was still fit to be a parent, that her legal troubles were separate from her ability to care for Sophie. My attorney presented a different picture, a mother who'd chosen an affair over her family, who participated in criminal activities, who'd shown Sophie that lying, cheating, and stealing were acceptable if you didn't get caught. The judge granted me primary custody. Jennifer got supervised visitation twice a month. Sophie had been staying with Jennifer's mother during all of this. The day I picked her up, she ran into my arms and didn't let go for a solid 5 minutes. "Daddy, are you coming home?" "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." I'd bought a smaller house in the Sunset District. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, a yard for Sophie to play in. Within walking distance of her school, I'd started the down payment with the first settlement check from Cardiotech. Raymond's trial started 8 months after the investigation began. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, email threads, testimony from hospital staff. Jennifer's testimony about the shell accounts. He tried to claim it was a misunderstanding, that he'd been moving funds for legitimate hospital business, that Jennifer had mismanaged the accounts without his knowledge. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. Embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. Scott Reeves took a plea deal to avoid jail time. 2 years probation, permanent revocation of his medical license, a criminal record that would follow him the rest of his life. Last I heard, he was working as a medical assistant at an urgent care clinic in Sacramento. Cardiotech Solutions went bankrupt after the settlement. The scandal destroyed their credibility. No hospital would trust them. No investors would back them. I took the patent and the technology to a different company, one with integrity. We relaunched the device properly, with clinical trials and FDA approval. It hit the market 18 months later. The cardiac intervention device saves lives. Last estimate, we've improved outcomes for over 10,000 patients. Sophie has a savings account that's growing every time a hospital orders another unit. She's going to have options I never had. San Francisco Memorial offered me my job back. Full reinstatement. Apology letter from the new board chairman. Increase in salary. I turned them down. Instead, I accepted a position as chief of cardiology at Stanford Medical Center. Better resources, better colleagues, better environment for my daughter. No ghosts haunting the hallways. Jennifer called me 127 times in the weeks after the arrests. I didn't answer. She left voicemails begging me to help her, to talk to the prosecutors, to tell them she'd been manipulated by Raymond. I listened to one voicemail, just one. Marcus, please. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was wrong. But I'm still Sophie's mother. I'm still the woman you loved. Help me, please. I saved the voicemail. Not because I felt sorry for her, but because I wanted to remember this moment. The moment when the people who tried to destroy me realized they'd miscalculated. They thought I was just Marcus Chen, the doctor who married well, the son-in-law who should be grateful for Raymond's patronage, the expendable employee who could be discarded when convenient. They forgot I was also Marcus Chen, who'd built himself from nothing, who'd earned every degree through merit, not connections, who'd spent 12 years documenting everything, not because I was paranoid, but because I was thorough. They forgot that the same intelligence that made me a good surgeon also made me dangerous when I had a reason to fight. I never called Jennifer back. But I did save one thing from our marriage, the brochure for the homeless shelter. The one she'd handed me that day in what used to be our home. I framed it. It hangs in my office at Stanford, right next to my diplomas. Right next to Sophie's drawing of a heart with a stethoscope, a reminder of where I was and where I ended up. Sometimes colleagues ask about it. Why do you have a homeless shelter brochure on your wall? I smile. Someone once told me I needed to think about a fresh start. They were right, just not in the way they intended. Sophie's doing great, by the way. She's 9 now, still wants to be a doctor. She asks about her mother sometimes. Wants to know why things happened the way they did. I tell her the truth, age-appropriately. That sometimes people make bad choices, that those choices have consequences. That integrity matters more than shortcuts. That you can't build a life on lies, no matter how comfortable they seem in the moment. Did you forgive Mommy? She asked me last week. I thought about that for a long time before answering. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself, sweetheart, not for other people. It means you stop letting someone's bad choices control your life. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. And it definitely doesn't mean helping people avoid the consequences of their actions. She nodded, processing that with the seriousness only a 9-year-old can muster. So did you? I forgave the pain they caused me, but I didn't help them escape justice. There's a difference. Last I heard, Raymond's up for parole in 4 years. Jennifer finished her probation and moved to Arizona. Scott's still working at that urgent care clinic. My device has been nominated for a Medical Innovation Award. Sophie's in gifted programs at school. I'm publishing research again, building a new life that's actually mine this time. They called me 127 times after realizing what I'd done. After the FBI showed up, after the medical board suspended Scott, after the patent lawsuit was filed, after they understood that every piece of their carefully constructed conspiracy was falling apart. 127 times they called, looking for mercy, looking for help, looking for the nice guy they thought they could push around. I never answered, because the person they were calling didn't exist anymore. They didn't destroy Marcus Chen. They just removed the parts of him that were too trusting, too forgiving, too willing to overlook problems for the sake of family harmony. What they got instead was someone who understood that the best revenge isn't about making people suffer. It's about making sure they face exactly the consequences they earned. Nothing more, nothing less. The truth is preserved. Their reputations are destroyed. Their careers are over. Their crimes are on the record. The rest is just business. And my daughter knows her father is the kind of man who stands up when it matters, who fights for what's right, who doesn't let betrayal define him. That's worth more than any revenge I could have taken. The cardiologist, still saving lives. Just different ones now.